if you're always tired but you can't seem to relax, if rest feels uncomfortable instead of restoring, if you're functioning, productive, and doing fine on the outside, but inside your body feels tense or on edge, then your nervous system might be in overdrive. And this video might explain more than you think. And before you're thinking, oh, this is just some anxiety content, stay with me. Because what I'm describing often shows up in people who don't feel anxious at all. Because being stuck in fight or flight doesn't always look like panic attacks or anxiety. Sometimes it's more subtle. Sometimes it looks like being high functioning, capable, and driven, until your body slowly starts paying the price. Today, I want to talk about real signs of sympathetic overdrive, the ones most people don't even recognize as stress. Hi, I'm Magali. Welcome to the Holistic Cup. Here I'll teach you everything from coping to complete well-being and share the missing keys to unlock your optimal health. To give you a quick reminder, your autonomic nervous system has different modes. One mode is designed for danger, action, and survival. That's the sympathetic nervous system, also called fight or flight. Another mode is responsible for rest, digestion, repair, healing, and connection. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. I already explained the autonomic nervous system in more detail in this video. I would highly recommend watching it first if you haven't already. When the sympathetic nervous system stays dominant for too long, your body adapts, but at a cost. And that cost often shows up in your behavior and body long before it shows up in your blood tests or diagnosis. So let's look at how you can recognize sympathetic overdrive in yourself early on. One of the clearest signs of sympathetic dominance is constant activity. You feel tired, but stopping somehow feels worse than continuing. You keep busy, you keep going, you push through. Not because you're motivated, but because slowing down makes you uncomfortable. Here's why. In a stressed nervous system, adrenaline is elevated. Movement uses adrenaline. Stillness makes you feel it. So your body learns something very quickly. Movement feels regulating. Stillness feels threatening. Action becomes regulation. This isn't discipline, it's survival mode. That's also why relaxing can feel boring, uncomfortable, or even irritating. Silence brings awareness back into the body. But when your body has been holding tension for a long time, that awareness doesn't feel safe yet. That's why many people in sympathetic overdrive say, I don't know how to relax. Or when things get quiet, they feel restless. A clue here can be the need for constant stimulation. Are you always trying to break the silence by grabbing for your phone, consuming content, or by creating distractions for yourself? Then maybe you're not even doing this because you enjoy them, but because you need to keep out of your body. This explains your overworking, inability to rest, compulsive productivity, exercise addiction, scrolling, pacing, and cleaning at night. Stimulation becomes a coping mechanism, and in a world full of constant input, this sympathetic pattern is easier than ever to reinforce. I think we should all be more aware of this, because the longer this pattern stays unrecognized, the harder it becomes to slow down, even when you finally have the time. So, if you're listening to this while pacing in your kitchen or playing some game on your phone for no reason, I won't call you out any further. This next one surprised me personally. It's about how you respond to change. When plans change, so does your mood. Last-minute changes feel disproportionately stressful. You prefer control, structure, knowing what's coming next. When you're in overdrive, predictability is associated with safety. Change feels like a threat, even when it logically isn't. This isn't a personality flaw, your system isn't being dramatic, it's trying to stay regulated. In sympathetic overdrive, self-worth often becomes tied to productivity. In survival mode, being useful increases a feeling of safety and belonging. That's why you feel fine as long as you're productive, and guilty when you rest. Rest feels undeserved or even unsafe. Over time, this disconnects you from rest, softness, and recovery. If this is you, if your worth has quietly become tied to how much you do, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not lazy for taking a break. You need it sometimes. This is how burnout sneaks up on people who seemed fine right until they weren't. Also, being vulnerable and receiving help will feel very uncomfortable. You're capable, independent, you handle things yourself. Not because you don't appreciate help, but because vulnerability requires safety, and you're in a state of self protection. Connection is parasympathetic, overdrive is not. Now, here's where the body tells on you, even when your mind doesn't want to. Your body will often tell the truth before your mind does. A tight jaw, raised shoulders, teeth grinding, shallow breathing in the chest instead of the belly, cold hands and feet, strong smelling sweat, feeling rushed in everything you do. These are not random habits. They're physical signs that your body is staying prepared for whatever comes next, even when there is no immediate danger. In the past, I can definitely say that my body was giving me a lot of these signs, and honestly, they just made me scratch my head. I noticed I had them, but I didn't know why. Now I've become much more aware. When I go through a stressful period and I can feel myself struggling to get out of that sympathetic overdrive, I can identify what's happening. That alone is a huge reassurance because I don't feel broken anymore. Do you recognize yourself in any of these signs we've discussed? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your experience. If you remember only one thing from this video, make it this part. A classical sign of nervous system overactivation is feeling wired but tired. You're exhausted, but you don't feel restored by rest. It's logical. You're in constant high alert mode. It drains so much energy. Ironically enough, although you might feel exhausted, most likely you experience sleeping problems. Light sleeping, your mind that keeps on going, and your body that never seems to fully power down. All because your stress hormones stay elevated and the parasympathetic nervous system doesn't get enough time to take over again. When this cycle goes on for long enough, you will eventually be forced to rest through exhaustion, illness, or a breakdown. I do want you to know that these signs are not diagnoses. They don't mean something is wrong with you. They just mean your nervous system adapted to prolonged stress exposure and stayed in that pattern. This can come from emotional stress, physical stress, illness, trauma, over-responsibility, chronic pressure, or even long-term inflammation. Your body learned to protect you, and the good news is that your nervous system is not broken. It just needs new information. With the right signals, it can shift again. Make sure to subscribe because in later videos, we'll uncover on how to get back into your parasympathetic rest and healing state. Because calming the nervous system isn't about forcing relaxation, it's about teaching the body that it's safe again. I hope you learned something of value today and see you next time on the Holistic Cup.